Hey there, my name is Zoltán, I'm from ConfigCat, and today here is my friend and CDO with me, Lali.
Hello everyone.
This short talk is about our journey building a feature flag service that we started as 6 engineers and scaled up to $1.7 million ARR. So ConfigCat is a feature flag service that serves billions of feature flag requests daily. We have a bit more than 500 customers, paying customers, including 2 governments, plus a few hundred free users globally. The whole thing is backed by a small team of 12 people. We are making $1.7 million ARR at a 20% net profit rate. The whole thing was started by 6 founders. All of them are engineers with 0 marketing and 0 sales knowledge at the beginning. The whole service and the whole company behind it is bootstrapped to this day, meaning that we have never ever received any investor money. The whole thing is owned, controlled, and governed by us. Let's see how it started. This small section is about from 0 to the first customer. So the whole thing started with Lali and Zoli. We met at Logmin. Lali was great with tech. He wanted to build something that makes sense and that makes money. He was looking for someone more into the business side of things. I was a product manager there at the time, and I secretly already quit it. So I went to my boss telling her that I'm going to leave this company because I want to build a feature flag service. I already did the user interviews. I had a mock-up, a name, a domain, and a pricing structure in my mind for it. But I had no team. So when we met with Lali, that was a match made in heaven.
So I truly hope that many of you experienced the feeling with starting a greenfield project. We started ConfigCat in 2017, and it was a truly amazing feeling clicking the new solution button and of course ditching that project in the next few weeks several times and clicking the new solution button again. But we started it, and we created an MVP. The very first commit was not this one. This was my first commit. The ConfigCat started as a PHP project developed by Zoli. It was, I don't know, maybe 500 lines of code or something like that.
Yeah, that was the mock-up.
And when we jumped into the project, most of the guys were .NET with the .NET background, and we decided to switch to .NET, and this is the .NET project first commit. And we created an MVP in ASP.NET backed up by my MySQL database. As you can see, if you are familiar with ASP.NET, we didn't took so much time designing it. This is kind of a starter project template here. The first feature flags were simple Boolean, or I don't know, maybe there was some number feature flags.
Yeah, there were numbers, strings, and Booleans.
Yeah. And we didn't even have had targeting rules at that time, or percentage rollouts, anything. This was the very first MVP. And we had this connect your application part on the bottom, and the very first connect your application, so we didn't even have SDK for ConfigCat. We created code snippet that showed you how to download a JSON file from our servers and how to unwrap a JSON and deserialize it. So that was the very first MVP. There are many threads on Reddit talking about feature flags and the build or buy aspect. And one of the most interesting comment for me was this. So feature flag tools are just fancy JSON editors. If I go back here, so it's not that fancy, but it will be in a few years. So yeah, but basically this is very true. ConfigCat is basically giving you the opportunity to define your feature flags, define your targeting rules and percentage options, and these configurations are basically written out to a JSON file. And our SDKs are downloading this JSON file and the feature flag evaluation happens on the client side, so in your applications. So the SDK downloading this JSON file that contains all the targeting rules and percentage options and everything that is needed for evaluating a feature flag. And the feature flag evaluation happens in the client side. It is cached and it is fast, and it is very cost efficient in this way because we only have to serve simple JSON files on our servers, and simple HTTP GET calls are necessary enough for us. Another approach would be a server-side approach. Some of our competitors are doing this, and in one of my previous companies, the company decided to build instead of buying a tool. And this tool was going with the server-side approach so basically this is an approach where you have an API endpoint that your customers can call, and the feature flag evaluation happens on server side. It has a database connection, database queries, it has a great latency, much larger latency. And this is very not so cost efficient, at least to say. In that company, the cost, as far as I remember, went up to $10,000 in a month. And ConfigCat in the very first 2 years was served by 2 $5 Linode servers. There is a difference. There is a big difference here. So, and in the long term, it was a very good idea to pay attention to this. So the infrastructure cost was kept as low as possible, because as Zoli mentioned, we are a completely bootstrap company. So I don't remember exactly, but I think we started with putting $1,000 each of us to a pool, and that was ConfigCat. And it was important to keep ConfigCat going and running as long as we can do it. And it was our money, our life, so it was not easy. So the very first architecture looked something like this. So there was one $5 Linux server at linode.com. It ran everything. It had the database, it had the app, the website, the config.json files, small Nginx server to serve the config.json files, and everything could run on this $5 virtual private server. So putting the feature flag evaluation logic to the SDKs can be difficult too, because you have to make sure that this SDK will not do any harm to your customers' applications. It will work fine, and all of your SDKs are evaluating the same feature flag for the same value. So it is not that easy to update an SDK if a customer installs an SDK or a component to their applications. I don't know how many of you has outdated SDKs or outdated packages in your applications. I guess lots of you. So, and we experience this a lot. So we have an outdated SDK feature in ConfigCat, so we can notify our customers to update the SDK, because if we wanted to fix a bug in the SDK or anything, our customers tended to not update the SDK, and when they came to us that there is a problem, we said that you are using a version that is 2 major versions behind, and it was very hard, this communication, that please update your SDK because the fix is in the updated version. And the very first SDK was a Python SDK, and it was a deliberate decision from me. I wanted to hurt myself a bit. My very first Python code was written into this Python SDK. I wanted to make sure that these SDKs are as simple as possible. And I didn't want to start with the .NET, because maybe in that way some fancy stuff would get into it, and I wanted to keep this as simple as possible. Later, this Python SDK was the template for all of our other SDKs. Another important part was creating some very extensive tests in these SDKs. We called it the matrix tests. They were basically small CSV files with lots of inputs and expected outputs. As far as I remember, there were around 1,000 test cases that every SDK should have passed before. So that was the bare minimum to pass before we could give it to our customers.
It was 1,200, I can still remember.
Right. So.
Thanks. So we are still talking about the first year. Lali already invited his friends. They are going to be the other 4 founders. So we are 6 founders team now. And then we did not have any customers yet. So Lali built the service. It was up and running. No paying customers. A few free users found our service. And what we did each day was we were analyzing session recordings. We used Smart Look for that. It's basically almost like you can watch a video about how your users are clicking around in your own tool. So I went to Lali's apartment, we analyzed the recordings, and we figured out where those free users felt like getting stuck. And then we just tried to remove the friction from the application. At the same time, I did quite a lot of user tests. I went to friends who worked as developers and managers, sometimes company owners. And I just told them that, hey, do you know what a feature flag service is? They told me, no, I do not know. Then I told them, hey, here is ours. I will not help you. Please sign up and try to create a flag and connect your application. At the same time, please talk out loud what's on your mind. So I just heard what they were thinking. That helped us to identify all the points where they got stuck. And again, we use that information to remove the friction from the onboarding experience. We did this in an iteration, and that helped us to create an application that was easy to sign up at that time and to get started within 10 minutes, which ultimately resulted in having real users by the end of the year. In November, we had 15 free users, and we were talking to all of them, like heavily bombarding them with emails like, hey, thank you so much for signing up. If you ever visit Budapest, just send me an email. We will invite you for a lunch and a beer. Please tell us, how did you find the service? Why did you sign up? And we use all that information to better the service. We do this not to this extent, but even today, we try to communicate as much as possible with our customers with the intent to learn their situation so we can help them better. So next year, maybe in April, we had our first paying customer. Lali was already very disappointed and the team was not in a really good mood and morale. So at Christmas, we did not have any paying customers at Christmas. So at Christmas, I thought I will use my own credit card and just purchase a subscription in incognito so they get a bit happier and do not quit. At the end of the day, I did not do it. And in February or in March, someone just miraculously purchased a subscription. It was really, really a wonder. I emailed him and told him that, hey, thank you so much. How about, don't you want to get a 50% discount? And he emailed us back that, hey guys, I see you just started this whole thing, so please keep my money and keep the business up and running. Because I was seriously considering implementing a feature flag service, but it would look really just the same what you're already doing. So please keep my money and do the business.
And seeing the first paying customer was an exceptional feeling.
Yeah.
I remember the exact time I was sitting in a cab, scrolling through 9gag, and the notification popped up that we had the first paying customer, and it was so great. It validated our idea and gave us so much.
Yeah, that was a boost, right?
Yeah, and so much boost to the future. Yeah, but it also meant that we have to step up our game a bit. So as you saw on the previous slides, that serving everything from a $5 server was not that high available solution. So we Dockerized our services and splitted the dashboard to Angular app, splitted the whole CDN and the config.json serving solution to different CDN nodes. I think that time ConfigCat costs about $40, so that was not so high then. But as the customers started to come and the config.json downloads are ramping up, we had to add more and more CDN nodes, and that time we decided to. So that was a manual task, creating a new server, installing the stuff there, and it was. We hated it, and we decided to start using Terraform, which I personally really love because it helped us a lot reducing this manual work on our side. So adding a CDN node was 5 minutes after it. Before it was 1 or 2 hours. And during these times, we came to a point where we hired our first employee, who was a QA guy. So before that, we usually tested our own stuff or tested each other's stuff. And I don't say that devs shouldn't test their own work, but it stinks a bit. And QA people are built differently. And our first hire was an exceptionally good guy who helped us not only in the testing, but even in the UX perspective. So that was a very, 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 very good part and peaceful part of ConfigCat till the day when we received our first and last DDoS attack. This DDoS attack didn't come from a malicious actor or a bad guy. It was coming from one of our customers. Our SDKs are working in a way that they are downloading the config.json file from our servers every 60 seconds by default. And everywhere where we told how to use the SDK, we told that you should use the SDK as a singleton. And this customer didn't use it as a singleton. The worst part was that the application was a Chrome extension. And after we noticed this redness here and madness, we easily could detect who is causing this issue. And we reached out to them. And they were very helpful. They fixed the bug, but deploying a Chrome extension is not that easy. Usually the review is 1 or 2 weeks. And after that, you still have to wait till the extension is updated in the browsers. So it was not a viable solution to wait for this to happen, and we had to do something. The first thing that you can see here, we added, I think it went up to 70 CDN nodes, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, each one of those red circles that represents a CDN node.
And that number up there is the request per second. But it is not a real number, I think. It is kind of that Chernobyl series thing where our analytics could only count for this.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was so much higher than this. And yeah, it was very frightening. It was very hard. It was the hardest day of my days of my life. I slept very few hours, and we tried to find some solution. And yeah, this didn't work, and lots of other solutions didn't work. Waiting for our customer was not a solution. So finally, we added a firewall, web application firewall above our infrastructure. We already knew about Cloudflare, and it was on our radar. We wanted to do it, but we worked on the product instead of this. And the product was great, but it was not usable. So usually, as an infrastructure change like this is taking more weeks, or 1 or 2 or maybe more weeks. You have to read through all the documentations and know this new tool that you want to use. We did it in maybe 2 hours. It of course didn't work at first. We had issues with it, and we learned a lot about DNS. So we had to move our name servers from GoDaddy to Cloudflare, We had to move all our DNS entries to Cloudflare, and we learned a lot from DNS. So after 2 weeks, there were still calls that are going to go to the instance of Cloudflare because the DNS was not propagated everywhere. So it was a very, very long time while we could fix the issue. And speaking of the Chrome extension, I checked it today, and this SDK key that caused this, and I remember the very first 4 characters of the SDK key today. So that SDK key was deleted since, and in the past 30 days, there were 2 IP addresses that are still calling that. So there are 2 Chrome extensions somewhere in the world who are still on that 6 years ago, I think, 6 years ago.
Yeah, this happened before the COVID, so
yeah. So
really
that
old
was
times.
Crazy times. But putting Cloudflare above our infra helped us a lot. So later we started using the caching solution, and after this madness, we went down to 4 CDN nodes, and it was more than enough. So at that time, the usual request per second was maybe 1 or 2,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was not that great if there was no Chrome extension.
At this point, we made a conscious decision to prioritize those users who do not need manual help from our team. So we were prioritizing self-serve users, self-serve customers, even if they were paying less in a month, before enterprise customers. And this proved to be a really good decision that removed the human component from our end and allowed us to grow really fast. With our new infrastructure, after those changes and after we started to prioritize self-serve customers, we have seen huge growth for many years, somewhere between 100 and 200% a year. A few other companies reached out to us. They wanted to purchase ConfigCat. We did not sell it, mainly because of money, so we wanted more, and culture, we did not like them that much. We were also reaching out to venture capital. We were trying to raise money that would help us scale the company even faster, but we did not resonate with them, or they did not resonate with us that good, so we ended up with no venture capital money at all. The main problem was that they wanted us to forecast our growth. We were engineers, and we were not comfortable with that. We felt like they just told us literally that, hey, here is a spreadsheet, just fill in with your numbers. But to me, it meant like, please write in arbitrary numbers that I'm going to held you responsible for in the next coming years. And I just did not do that. So we ended up scaling without venture capital. And from those 200 customers, we went up to much, much more until recession hit in. And that involved a couple of infrastructure changes as well.
Yeah, so at that time, all our services were deployed to multiple servers, so almost everything was highly available except our database. It was still running on a single virtual private server. It was a single instance. It just shouted out for errors. Luckily, we didn't have any, but it was the next step that we had to take. So we decided to move to a MySQL Galera cluster. We dreamt big. It was a 4-server layout, master replicas, so it could serve us for a very long time. But this migration to the new Galera cluster would require downtime. So we decided to create a maintenance mode enabled feature flag. Of course, we are using the best feature flag service in the world, ConfigCat. And this maintenance mode enabled feature flag basically just showed we will be back soon page when our customers tried to visit our site, so we can do the migration without our customers trying to hit our databases. So we turned on this feature flag, we did the migration, everything went smoothly, and I wanted to turn off the feature. And this page was there. Imagine us, the feature flag experts.
Yeah, basically we shut down our own service using a feature flag that we hosted, and then we just could not get back into our own service to flip the flag again. That was very smart.
So we quickly deployed the new version of our software with a backdoor somewhere in this page. I won't tell you where it is, which allowed us to log into the ConfigCat dashboard and turn that feature off. So yeah, that was the biggest blundering feature of like history, I think.
Yeah, and as more and more customers came to ConfigCat, we learned the term procurement, which basically means that large companies, typically enterprises, have whole departments that check whether the enterprise that is trying to buy ConfigCat does it the right way in terms of is ConfigCat secure enough? Are the contractual agreement, I don't know, compliant with what they expect they as a customer from themselves? And then procurement departments are just one. Okay, so they are usually a pain in the neck in the sales process, and we were like quite unexperienced. They sent us large security questionnaires, sometimes just 10 or 20 questions, but sometimes 400 or 600 questions like, do you encrypt data on the disk type of questions? And then we answered yes. But there were 400 more questions. We did not really like it. And then what we found out was that we are going to get certified. This is how we acquired our first ever ISO 27001 certification. And that helped us. After that, we needed to answer significantly less security-related questions, but we still could not figure out how to handle the custom contract parts. And recession hit in, we received less self-serve users. It turned out that the recession in the IT industry ended up in cost cuts. Our potential customers were not allowed to spend on software like ConfigCat, and typically their procurement department was the internal tool that prevented their engineering teams for purchasing a service in an easy manner. So we just have seen more and more custom contracts coming in, custom contract requests, and we have seen customers transitioning from painless credit card payments toward painful bank transfers. And that's how we enter to the almost last era of ConfigCat, where we try to build an enterprise-grade, enterprise-compliant company that still has a startup-friendly solution.
Yep, so everything was highly available at that time, but the MySQL cluster that we used had slight issues. Sometimes the replication didn't work. We had to fine-tune it a lot. We had to modify the configurations a lot, and we felt that we want to focus on building the product instead of modifying MySQL configuration files. And also, as Zoli mentioned, the enterprise customers had lots of questions for us. One of them usually was, where are you hosted? And when we told them we are hosted on Linode and DigitalOcean servers, they asked us who they are. What is this stuff? And then we decided that we don't want to work on the infrastructure that much, so we decided to move to AWS. We decided to go with an Aurora MySQL cluster. That was the first migration. Then the services were still in the Linode servers, and then there was a slight latency, so we moved them to Elastic Container Services. And the last step, and I think the most important step, was the config.json file distribution. So previously it was served by Nginx web servers. It had slight issues, but we moved to S3 buckets, and it's a much more reliable solution.
Of course, it's not only the S3 buckets, we have Cloudflare in front of them as an HTTP edge cache, plus a lot of more components that we just do not have simply the time to all mention. But at the same time, to be more enterprise compliant, we needed to level up our own game. So instead, coming from a support approach, we transitioned to a customer experience type of approach, and we have a great head of customer experience and growth person sitting in the crowd, Chilla. She enabled it for us. she really did a wonder managing all the support problems and the contractual needs and all types of compliance problems of customers in a wonderful process. We started to learn how to handle custom agreements if they attacked with custom requests. So if customers attacked us with custom requests, we answered with custom pricing. And also we have learned that whenever they want to have custom agreements, we need real legal help. So we started to work very, very closely with 2 legal agencies that today they just review all the requests that customers send to us, and then they can work with customer legal departments, emailing back and forth versions of the agreement. So this is legal lawyer lingo. I learned it. They call it the red line version because they always do it in Word, and whenever they just change a line in the agreement, it becomes red in Word. So they call it redlining, and that's what they are doing. That's what we are paying for, and that's what the customers are paying for. And that's a lucrative business for everyone involved. And this lucrative business allowed us to build a financially stable business. We introduced a financial policy. Every spend, if it's just controlled by the financial policy, and it allows us to build up a nice reserve of 12 months of running costs, meaning that if all of our customers would have just disappeared by tomorrow, we could still keep the whole team and run for all the servers and all the infrastructure for the next 1 year without any problem. And our last message to you is that you can do it yourself if you want it. So if any of you have a core software idea or a product that is close to ready or ready and wants to create a software as a service business, then here are the steps how we did it. So first we had a core software product, but doing a lot of user tests and working on the design and UX, that was the thing that helped us to get our first free users. But after getting free users, you need to do something, and that something is introducing limits. So you need to limit your free users so they do not consume all the resources. But once you have resource limits built in, it's a good way to ask for money if the user wants to get more limits. The message here is that it doesn't make sense make payment to develop the payment until you have limits or a good design and UX. But once you have limits and payments, to be able to accept payments, you need to have a legal entity, and that's usually a company. The message here is that please do not start with a company. At least this is not what we did. We created the company once we had to receive the payments. And once you have limits and payments, that allows you, that's the right time to introduce any type of sharing functionality into your application, because with payments, limits, and sharing, you can introduce referrals, which basically means that, hey, dear customer, if you do not want to pay the whole sum, but still want your limits to be raised, please share the thing. And that gives you sort of like an additional marketing channel to acquire or to get even more users and customers. And then, so those are the static building blocks of a software as a service business, and how we operate it is this. So let's say you have your own free subscription already. You are there, but you want paid users. So those users need to upgrade. And then to get some free customers, you definitely need a website. In our case, it was the ConfigCat website or any other channel where those users can click the sign up button, right? But how you get users to the website, it's like, for us, it was Google search. Today, it's definitely AI type of search. It turned out that whenever users searched for feature flags, they did not find the ConfigCat website, but they found review sites instead. Review sites like G2, Trust Radius, those sites. And then we discovered that if ConfigCat looks good on those review sites, then those customers will come to the ConfigCat website at the end of the day. So we started to build out our profile on those review sites. And it turned out that not all customers are self-serve customers. Some customers just have a wish or a need for a
human contact.
Yeah, okay, come on. Yeah, for human contacts. And then they just book a demo. So you can give them a demo, and after that, they get into the free subscription. But we discovered that if we do the demo thing right, then they get right into the paid subscription. And then the doing it right type of thing, we just wrote it down. That's a script. We call it a sales playbook. That's how we discovered that a concept like a sales playbook exists. We go with the sales playbook, and that's how we get customers into the paid subscription. And then after that, we discovered that free subscription and paid subscription users, they sometimes just have problems, so they turn to the support. We discovered that if we do the support thing good, then they will pay or upgrade. And what we do at the support, that's what we call the support playbook now. Later, we discovered that not all customers wants to pay, or not all user wants to pay, even if they get a great support. So we started to ask other things instead as well. That's how we defined our customer partnership program, which basically means that we ask customers to leave reviews for us at review sites, write about us. That way we get backlinks, and now we have a complete loop in this whole system that works like an upward spiral, and each customer that gets to ConfigCat goes to the support, brings in even more customers. That's how we do it. And yeah, the whole thing looked like this when we first drew it on a chart. Thank you so much for your attention.